Welcome to Empowered Wellness with CHITTA. Thank you for joining me for today's practice. So today I'm sharing with you my morning warm-up routine. And I do this practice pretty much every morning right after I get out of bed before I start my day as my way to ease into the day, but also really to warm up my joints with some nice mindful movement, with some breath work, with some energy flow. So the basis for this morning warm up that I do, which I've been doing now for quite a few months, are the 10 churnings. And the 10 churnings are 10 joint movements. So 10 movements that focus on key joints of the body with the intention of warming up the joints, loosening the joints, creating more mobility and ease in those joints. And certainly as I'm getting older, I'm noticing my joints definitely want and need a little more TLC, a little more attention, especially first thing in the morning. So what I started doing was to practice these 10 churning movements, but I started embellishing on them a little bit and just being playful with them, being creative with them, because I also found that I enjoy some variety. And so while those 10 specific movements provide me with a nice foundation, I enjoy adding some creativity and some other movement to those 10 churnings, just to, again, have some fun with it, to really fine tune the movements to what my body might need on any given day, any given morning, because sometimes certain parts of my body feel like they need a little more than other parts of my body. So I'm sharing this practice with you today, and hopefully it may be helpful to you as a morning warm up, or perhaps anytime you need to kind of loosen up. If you've been sitting for a long time working, at the desk or the computer, if you've been traveling, anytime you need a little warm up, a little loosening up, a little attention to the joints, a little upliftment, and even a little fun and play, I recommend practicing this particular routine. And if you enjoy this practice, I encourage you to like the video and subscribe to my channel. That way you can get notified whenever I put new videos out. If you've been visiting my channel and have been finding value in the videos, the meditation and yoga videos that I have, then perhaps you'd consider becoming a patron and pledging your support on a monthly basis. That really helps me continue to put more of this free content so that others, as well as yourself, can enjoy these practices and hopefully feel better. So any information you might want about becoming a patron, I have a link down below. Go ahead and check it out and see how you may want to pledge your support. Depending on the tier you choose, you also receive some benefits as a patron, some exclusive video content that I don't actually put on YouTube that comes from my workshop archives, as well as some discounts and some other special perks for being a patron and showing your support. And I'd like to send a big thank you to all of my current patrons. Thank you so much for your continued support. And whether becoming a patron feels right to you or not, I am truly grateful that you're sharing in this practice with me today. So thank you for visiting my channel. I hope you come back and do some more practice with me here. And so with that, let's get started with today's video. Thank you and enjoy. Let's begin by arriving in our practice space, whether that be a yoga mat or anywhere that you may be practicing at this time. Coming into your mountain pose, I invite you to close your eyes or find something in front of you on which to rest your gaze. And make that a soft gaze, softening your eyes as you rest your gaze if you're not going to close your eyes. And let's take a big breath and take our awareness inward. Whether your eyes are closed or not, bring your awareness inward and feel your body. Feel your weight through your legs, through your feet, and just notice what you're noticing this morning or this afternoon or this evening, whenever you're doing this practice. Notice what you're observing about your body. And whatever it is, it's okay. We're just taking inventory. We're taking in the information of how we're feeling at this time. So perhaps you might feel a little unbalanced. Maybe you notice your weight shifting more on one leg than the other, or perhaps shifting back and forth. Or maybe you notice some holding or some tension in certain parts of your body, certain congestion. Whatever it is, just again, take note. No judgment, no need to analyze or trying to figure out why does it feel this way? Why am I tense there? Why am I feeling unbalanced? No, none of that. Just observe. Again, just taking inventory, gathering information. Taking one more nice big breath here. And if you have your eyes closed, go ahead and gently open those eyes. And let's begin our 10 churnings. And the first churning begins at the feet with the toes and the ankles. So shifting weight over to the right foot, I'm going to begin with my right foot. That's what feels good for me. Then lifting the left heel off the floor. Let's feel that left ball of the foot and toes press down or sink into the mat, into the floor. And let's begin some really nice mindful rotations through that left foot. So pressing the ball of the foot and then the toes one at a time. And really feel that gentle pressure from one toe to the next into the ball of the foot. And doing that anywhere from 3 to 5 to 7 times in one direction. And then let's go in the other direction, making the movement mindful, maybe even going uber slow. Sometimes I like to do that. It's just slowing it down as slow as I can, like slow motion, to really feel what's going on in that area. Beautiful. So once we feel complete with that movement, then we'll shift onto the tops of the toes. So this is where you may want to go near a wall or some sort of furniture in case you need a little support for balancing. But just rolling onto the tops of the toes, trying to access that first joint of each toe if you can, as best as you can. And again, this is where having some kind of support may be helpful so you're not putting too much pressure into your joints. Because we don't want any kind of pain. Just find that just right feeling where you feel maybe a little bit of pressure, maybe even slight discomfort, but definitely not pain. And here, just gently roll side to side on the tops of your joints of your toes. Now I like to add a little bounce, just a real gentle bounce, kind of moving my knee a little bit, kind of rocking side to side a little. So this is where I'm embellishing on the 10 churnings. This is not part of the 10 churnings, not part of the ankle release or foot release of the traditional 10 churnings, but I'm beginning my embellishment, my play with the 10 churning movements. So after a few times, several times doing that, I'm just going to bring that foot down, shake out my feet a little bit just to give that supporting leg a little break. And then coming back to support through that right leg. This time I'm going to bring my foot back slightly so I can access the second joints or go further down into the foot joints. And again, just let the weight settle. Make sure that it's not too much, it's not painful. Again, use your supports if you need to for balance here. And then once again, I'm going to do a little bending and twisting, just a gentle kind of springiness. I like to imagine a little spring in my step here because that's what I'm going for. I'm trying to create some ease, some lightness, and it may not feel so easy and light right now, but that's what I'm hoping to create. That's what I'm intending to have is a little spring in my step, lightness in my feet, in my toes. So after again, a handful of those movements, I will bring that foot down. So let's come back into that mountain pose. Maybe a little movement, maybe a little shake. Maybe you need to again, rotate that foot around a little bit. So listen to what your body might need here before you settle into mountain pose again. Just take a moment to observe before we do the other side. And you might notice a little difference from one foot to the other already. And then let's do the other side. So shifting weight over to the left, lifting that right heel, and rotations. Again, mindful movement. Whatever that means to you today. Breathe with it. Keep that breath flowing. And then the other direction. I like to feel my way. Sometimes we use a guide, like 3 times in one direction, 3 times in the other, or 5 or 7, whatever you might want to use as your guide. And sometimes I just like to feel my way. And when it feels complete on one side, I start going in the other direction or the other side, depending on what I'm doing. And then when that feels complete, just again, settling, finding that groundedness, that steadiness through my supporting leg before I curl onto the toes for the first time. And when I feel ready, I'm going to begin that little bit of slight bounce, slight twist. Again, imagining a little spring in my step. And before that, I could also do the side to side. So this is where, again, because we're embellishing, sometimes, I'll do a little bit of this side to side. Sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll just do the spring in my step. So this is where you make it your practice, right? Listening to your body and seeing what your body needs. And this is where we can play. We start making this practice kind of fun and creative. So I love using the foundation of and then once that feels complete, maybe stretch that foot, maybe wiggle that out before I go a little bit further into the top of that foot, that right foot, taking the foot back slightly, and then same thing. So as I was saying, I like to use the foundation of the 10 Churnings for my warm-up practice, my loosening up practice. But then I love adding creativity to it. And that helps keep it fresh for me. That keeps it fun for me when I do it every day. It doesn't get boring. So it's a combination of using something traditional, some sort of guide and structure. And then when that feels complete, bring your foot back down, of course. Using that guide, that structure of the traditional practice, but then having fun with it. So once you are back in mountain pose, perhaps you close your eyes and again, just feel those feet, the ankles, the toes. Notice what you feel. Take a big breath and we'll move on to the second churning, which focuses on movement of the knees. So bringing those toes to touch, if that feels comfortable. If it doesn't, you can keep the heels under the hips, bending those knees slightly, bringing your hands to your knees. And before I start the movement, I enjoy just kind of giving my knees a little TLC. Oh, the hands are so healing. Touch is so healing. Of course, as a body worker, I would say that, but it's true. And you don't have to be a body worker to receive healing from your own touch or from any touch. So just a few times, circles in one direction, circles in the other direction, really just giving some love to those knees. Yes, and then once you feel complete with that, hands at the tops of the knees, not pressing down, but just kind of supporting the knees. Let's do little rotations here. And again, synchronized breath if that feels good for you. Making sure that we are taking nice, full, big breaths, however it is that you're breathing with your movement. And sometimes I like to lift my toes when my knees straighten out, and that really grounds me. Even though my toes are lifted, I can feel the weight. Hello, Gypsy. Gypsy is making a little appearance and saying hi. And after several times in one direction, we'll go in the other direction. Feeling those knees. Feeling grounded. with this movement. And then when that feels complete, straightening out, maybe shake out those knees a little bit. Come back into your mountain pose, and we'll move on to the third churning, which is at the hips. Starting to release those hips, hands at the hips, and let's begin some slow rotation through the hips here, making little circular movement here. Doesn't matter which direction you go first, whatever direction feels right to you today. But again, mindful, slow, conscious movement. And as you make this movement, notice where you might feel some stickiness. That's what it feels like to me, stickiness. Like there's like little kinkiness or stinky, not stinkiness, hopefully not stinkiness, but stickiness in certain areas. So as you do this movement, notice where you feel some stickiness. And perhaps you hold that point, like right here, I feel a little tension, a little not so smooth flow when I move right through this spot. So I'll stop and I'll take a big breath or two, and then I'll continue. And you might stop at a different spot if you notice another spot like that. And if you don't, if you feel like, no, it just feels better just to continue to flow through the circular movement, feel free to do that. Again, this is your practice. What feels right to you today? And from day to day, each time you do this loosening up practice, this warming up practice, it will be different. And you may do things a little differently. And that's what makes it fun, right? Getting creative with it, really feeling your way through the practice from day to day. Awesome. When you feel complete with that, come back to center, pause for a moment, and let's go in the other direction. I always like starting off small with a smaller movement and then allowing my body to grow into it if it wants to. And today, that one area definitely, and even in the other direction, feels a little stuck. So I pause and I breathe a couple extra breaths in there before I continue. So you may have a spot like that today, or maybe a couple. And then when that feels complete, coming back to center once again, relax those hands, maybe shake those hands out a little bit. Moving on to the shoulders, our fourth churning, rolling those shoulders. So traditionally, it's about rotating the shoulders, inhaling maybe up and back, exhaling down and forward. And I often will start off this way, and then I allow myself again to play and to get creative with this particular shoulder movement. So as you might have noticed already, sometimes I get my knees and my whole body involved so that it's not just my shoulders, but if my entire body wants to feel this movement. Of course, initiating from the shoulders. The shoulders are the main thing that I'm focusing on in this particular movement. But if there's a ripple effect into the body, I allow it. Awesome. And then I'll go in the other direction. Just seeing how I want to move in the other direction through the shoulders as I rotate shoulders back and up, forward and down. And then I'll give myself some leeway to play here again. So I may start doing one shoulder at a time and explore the alternating rotation. Just see how that feels. And of course, going in the other direction. So you might give yourself some leeway here to play, and maybe you do something different from what I'm doing. Or maybe you continue to just do both shoulders if that feels good to you. But I always like ending on taking those shoulders back and down and settling them, shaking out those arms a little bit. And then observe. Just notice the energy, notice what you're feeling before you move on to the next churning movement, which works with the neck. And we start off making little circles with the nose. Imagine you have a a paintbrush or a pencil or something attached to your nose, and you're starting off making little circles in the air in front of you. And beginning to slowly make those circles bigger. So now you're kind of making this spiral shape as your circles get bigger. And just finding the biggest circle that feels good to your neck today in this moment. And as you get bigger with your circles, perhaps slowing it down a little bit more. So here again, I often will feel some stickiness in my neck, and so I might find a point where, oh yes, I'm just going to stop there, pause and breathe a couple of big breaths right into that stickiness wherever I feel it. And sometimes my head unwinds a little bit. I might even move slightly and very slowly, almost very infinitesimal type movement, just so small, so gradual. And then I'll continue with that rotation, making those circles until or unless I find another spot where I might stop again. Take a couple of big breaths and then continue on. So you can play with that, explore if you want to stop at any point to work through some kinks, if you have any today. And when that feels complete, let's just come back to center, pause for a moment, and then make those circles in the other direction, starting small and growing into the bigger circle. Be mindful that you're not going too fast. We don't want to feel dizzy in any way. Really paying attention, making sure your gaze is on something as you make those movements with your head, that you're actually looking at something the whole time from one end of the circle to the other. And of course, again, pausing as needed if your neck is asking for a pause in any particular spot. And when that feels complete, back to center once again. All right, so we've gone through 5 of the churning movements. And before we do the next 5, this is where I'm going to add a little more of my embellishment that I have found is helpful, including some other movements, undulating movements, as well as a little bit of Qigong type movement. So before we move on to the second half of the churnings, I like to kind of bring movement into all of the joints that we've touched so far. So I'll begin by just doing kind of a little step movement. So here, as I step from side to side, I'm getting my toes, my ankles, my knees, my hips, and then my shoulders. I'm going to add a little shoulder. Yeah, a little neck movement in this too. Just kind of see how you want to move. This is where we play. Have some fun with our movement. Breathe with it. Beautiful. After a little bit of that, then I'll focus on the hips and the shoulders a little bit more with some nice undulation. So the way I like to do it is I'll shift my weight. I'm going to start shifting my weight over to the right foot and lifting that left foot just barely off the mat. I'm going to do a little rocking with that leg, rocking from the hip. And this is one of those places where you might, again, need a little support, have a wall or some sort of furniture around that you can hold on to with your right hand as you rock that left leg and just undulate. It's like a pendulum. We're going to do a little pendulum movement through that left hip, left leg here. Keep breathing. Feel the energy. Breathe it through that leg. Loosening up the hip, moving the energy through the left leg. Maybe even imagining that we're just releasing, we're letting go, we're kicking out through that leg, whatever is just not serving us Whatever we've stirred up with our previous movements, now we're just kind of kicking it to the curb. And then slowly bring yourself back into that mountain pose pause. Let's just check in. Maybe you notice some sensation in that left leg, left foot. And then let's do the other side, shifting over to the other leg. And a little pendulum movement here. And your pendulum movement could be really small, and it could be slower, or it could be big, and it could be faster. So this is where we listen. We listen to our bodies. We tune inward. And I always recommend starting small, starting slow, because then we can really pay attention. And then we can allow our body to guide us, and we can grow into perhaps a bigger movement or a faster movement if that's what feels right today in that moment. Oh, yeah. Flow in the energy. Yeah, for this leg today, I want to do a little bigger movement. Oh, yeah, that feels good. Moving that energy through the hip. And then when I feel complete, I'm going to slow it down. And coming back. Finding that mountain pose, pausing. Noticing again. And maybe, hopefully, you feel a little more balanced through both legs after doing that. So little similar movement through the arms and the shoulders. We're going to flow that energy, move the prana, get things lifted, uplifted a little bit more through movement of energy. And so I'm going to begin simply. This is a bit of a qigong move where both arms, soft elbows, soft fingers, soft wrists, but the arms stay extended. And both arms at the same time come about shoulder height, no higher, and just kind of flap down as if you're pushing air down. But it's not aggressive. I'm not forceful. I'm not really engaging my muscles all that much. I'm kind of allowing the momentum of this undulation to continue, to allow for the movement to continue naturally. And I'm breathing. However, you may want to breathe with this movement. And I like doing this for about a minute or so. So if you're not sure, you could count about 50 or 60 of these movements. Or you could just, again, feel your way through it. What feels appropriate? What feels sufficient, complete? What feels like a minute or so? Moving that prana, that chi, that life force energy through the body. Perhaps even including some imagery here. I have fun with imagery too. So is there any kind of imagery that feels good to you as you do this movement? Imagery of flushing the body through the arms, flushing the arms, the shoulders, releasing, pushing out through those hands, those fingers, things that don't serve us are just dripping off, flowing through the arms, dripping off those hands and fingers. Whatever works for you. This is the creative, fun, playful part of the practice. So maybe slowing that down. And then just observing. You might notice again some flow, some energy, some tingling, whatever, some different sensation through the arms. Just notice what you notice. Beautiful. All right, now we're going to continue with the remaining 5 churnings. So taking those feet a little further apart, let's do a little twisting through the spine. Little empty coat sleeves is sometimes what this particular movement is called. I do like coordinating my breath with this movement, so I'll take a breath at center, and on the exhale, I'll fling my arms to either side, lift. In this case, I've started lifting with my right heel as I'm twisting to the left, and then inhale, lift the left heel as I twist to the right. So I'm adding a little ha breath. You might do that, or you might just do whatever kind of breathing works for you here. fuller breaths. You may not move or breathe one breath per movement. So see what feels right for you. And whatever you're choosing to do, again, make that movement mindful. Start off a little slower, perhaps. And if it feels good to speed it up, feel free to do that. Again, make sure you're finding something to look at as you move side to side, focusing your vision, your gaze on something from one side to the other. Again, I like to do this for about a minute, but you can do it for as long as it feels right to you. Working. And it's a gentle tap of the arms. The arms are gently tapping the core region, the abdominal region, and the backside there of the core. So I imagine that I'm just giving love taps to my liver and my stomach in the front and my kidneys in the back. Little love taps. Hello. Hello, stomach and liver. Hello, kidneys. And then slowing it down, gradually coming back to center. And again, pause. Take that breath or two pause in between to just check in and notice how it feels. And let's move on to the next one. Little side bending movement now. So I like bringing my heels back under my hips and hands to the either side of the body. And as we do our side bend here, I'm bringing my right arm up and I'm caressing and I'm kind of massaging the side of my body, my rib cage. And I go as high as it feels comfortable, and then I curl my fingers under and kind of stretch the outside or the back of my hand, back of my wrist there, and then the other side. And just kind of going side to side. I allow my head to move in whatever fashion feels good as I do this. Mindful, consciously moving. Really feeling the warmth and the kind of healing of the touch of the hands gliding from side to side. And maybe even pausing a little bit at each end of movement to feel the stretch at the wrists, at the back of the wrist there. Maybe you visualize how you're creating space on either side. You're clearing that rib cage, that waistline of any residue, any stickiness, space between the ribs. And maybe eventually you're able to bring the hand all the way up to the armpit. I know for me, when I do this in the mornings, I'm not always ready to go all the way up to my armpit. I have to work my way into it. And then sometimes I make it there, sometimes I don't. Awesome. And when that feels complete, coming back to center, maybe shake it out. Pause for a breath, and then we'll move on to the next one. So here, before I do the actual churning movement, I like to embellish and play a little bit. I'm going to bring my arms out to the sides, straight out, reaching them out. And sometimes I'll even bring my palms down to really settle the shoulder blades against the back of the ribs. So I have that tendency to shrug sometimes. So to make sure that I'm not shrugging, I'll do that first, and then I'll turn the palms back up. And then I actually go into a little rotation with those arms just to really loosen up through the shoulders again. And again, if this causes a ripple effect, you might notice that the rest of my spine kind of wants to move with this. My chest and my back are flowing with this rotation through the arms. Feel free to allow your body to move as it feels comfortable as you do this rotation. Awesome. After I do that a few times, several times, I'm going to then bring those hands to the back of the head as those elbows go out to the side in preparation for the next churning movement. So I like to coordinate breath here. I inhale and then exhale, bring those elbows towards each other as far as they feel comfortable going, finding the edge of that movement. On the inhale, I'll press my elbows back and I'll actually press my head into my fingers a little bit to activate the back of my neck, the muscles in the back of my neck. And then going at the pace that feels good to me. Starting slow and deliberate, consciously moving, perhaps speeding up if that feels better, if my body wants to grow into that or not. So doing this movement several times. Maybe you start 5 times on each movement, or again, maybe you just feel your way through to completion. And when it feels complete, pause, press back through the elbows a little bit, feel the head gently pressing against the fingers, nothing aggressive. Take a breath or two. And I love ending this one with a little cheer. So I'll take a nice big breath, and on the exhale, I do a little cheer for myself. Ready for my day. Woohoo! And then float those arms down, shake it out again. All right, moving right along. We're on our ninth churning movement. So for this one, again, a little play, a little preparation before I go into the actual churning movement itself. And I'm going to protract my shoulders, meaning I'm going to pull my arms forward and allow the shoulder blades to come forward. And then I'm going to retract, meaning I squeeze the shoulder blades and I take the shoulders back. So I'll do that a handful of times, just feeling this movement through the shoulders. All right, the key to all of these movements is that we're lubricating our key joints. We're bringing energy, prana, we're flowing prana through the key joints, and we're lubricating them on a physiological level. We're getting lots of great glide through the fascial network at our joints. Awesome. So then we're going to, after a few times, we're going to keep those arms straight out in front, protracting the shoulders, reaching forward, bend those elbows, and then hands come together, interlacing the fingers. And just notice which thumb is in front. And so just notice that. And if you're comfortable bringing those elbows to go together, go ahead and do that. If that's not comfortable, if you feel any pinching in the front of the shoulders, then I recommend not doing that and keeping the elbows apart. So depending on how the shoulders feel to you, adjust your elbow position accordingly. And then we are going to roll the wrists. And imagine, nice slow movement, that one hand is pressing down the other hand, and they're kind of doing this beautiful dance. The one hand presses the other, and then the other hand takes over, presses back. And we'll do that again a handful of times, and then we'll do the other direction. Trying to keep the shoulders as soft and comfortable as possible as you do this. Beautiful. And then when that feels complete, I like to stretch my arms out, maybe do a little movement again, open up those shoulders again if they felt compressed in any way before I do the other side. So reaching forward, once again, bend those elbows. Now, whichever thumb was not in front or on top, now you have the other one on top. So same thing, either elbows together, or again, you can do this apart if it feels better for your shoulders to do that. Both directions. Until that feels complete. And then reach it out, reach it in whichever direction feels good. Open it up. And shake those hands. So shake those hands, shake those fingers, shake those thumbs, shake those wrists. Give it a little shaky shake. All right. Last churning movement. This is going to be kind of like a standing cat-cow movement. So bending those knees slightly, hands on the thighs, and how much you bend your knees really depends on what feels good to you. So I'm going to turn sideways to make it easier for you to see this movement. And as I mentioned, it's like a standing cat-cow. So on the inhale, the hips go back, the head goes up, the chest comes forward as the shoulders go back. On the exhale, the head and the hips come forward, the shoulders round forward as the spine rounds back. So allow yourself to find your flow. Breathe with this movement. I enjoy coordinating breath with this movement. Take those big full breaths. Find the way to synchronize it that feels good to you today. And again, I always recommend starting slow and then perhaps growing into either a faster or a bigger movement if that feels good to your body. Now, I also like to play in this particular movement. So sometimes I will do it in a more wave-like fashion. And what I mean by that is that I will take my hips out, then my rib cage, then my head. And then I'll move the head, then the shoulders and the rib cage, and then the hips. So I kind of do it more in a linear fashion, more asymmetrical in the movement than symmetrical. So feel free to explore, play with this standing cat-cow movement. Again, the amount of bend is totally up to you. One more maybe. And when that feels complete, slowly bring it back up into that mountain pose. And I love ending the entire warm-up practice with a full body shake. So let's get it all involved. Shake off everything, toes, feet, knees, anything we've stirred up, right? Stuck energy, all the grains of stuck energy, anything we've brought to the surface. Nice full body shake just to shake it all off. Let it all go. We're not carrying around any more of this for the rest of the day. Clear and free. And I like to do a good minute of this body shaking, but again, you do to the extent that feels good to you. Let's get some dance moves in here sometimes just to, again, have fun with it, get playful, get creative. All right, so once you feel complete with your full body shake, I invite you to come back to the mountain pose that we started with. Again, either finding something to gaze at in front of you or closing your eyes. Let's do a final check-in. Feeling your weight, feeling your balance, feeling your energy, feeling any sensations. And hopefully noticing some more spaciousness within, noticing some more openness, more ease, more balance, more energy, more upliftedness, more fun. And I invite you to take 3 big full breaths in and out. And I love on the exhale, just blowing out or sounding out that exhale and also sending out my intention, whatever is my intention for the day, for this moment, sending it out to the universe on that exhale. Take that big breath in. And whenever that feels complete to you, slowly opening your eyes, and you're ready to go. So thank you so much for sharing in this practice with me today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had fun with it. And until next time, be well.